Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, one half of the YA Room, and wow, I cannot believe January is already over. This month has been so busy. I've been doing so much stuff. It's like a whirlwind of preparation for YA Day, launching my podcast that I do with Casey, which you should definitely check out. It's called That YA Podcast. And of course, I've been blogging and reading and just everything. Working, I work 3 jobs, so that's been hectic. But basically just like life stuff. Where does the time go? I don't even know. But in saying that, I did get through a lot of books this month, which I'm super proud of. And if you don't know this already, this year is the first year that I've ever attempted a Goodreads reading challenge. So that's exciting. I feel like having accountability to read more and to push myself to read 100 books has really made me realize how many books I should be reading a week and how long it should be taking me to get through each book. In the 31 days that we had of the wonderful month of January, I got through 20 books, which I'm super proud of. I don't know how I did it. Yes, I do. I didn't sleep. But most of them I really enjoyed. I can't even believe that out of the 20, the majority I gave maybe 4 or more stars. I'm just a generous reader, okay? Let's not get into that. So today I'm going to be sharing my very brief thoughts on each of the books I read this month. The only one I don't have on me is White Knight, but I'm gonna give you a rundown of all of them. Let's do this! So one of the things I read this month was Fence Number 3 by C.S. Pacat. I don't know how to say her last name, I'm sorry. I knew this author from writing an adult fantasy series, and while I hadn't read it, I knew that a lot of people really enjoyed it, so I was keen to pick up her comic. When I heard it was about gay fences, how could I say no? I just love everything queer, including this comic. I'm just in love with it. It's adorable. There's only 3 volumes out, so I'm trying to keep up to date. Every month they come out, I go to my local comic store and pick up a copy, and I just devour it in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's so good. It's so good. You need this in your life, and the illustrations are just gorgeous. Oh, get onto it. Next up I have Nice Try, Jane Sinner, which is a book I was really excited to get into because it's about a girl with depression in college, and we don't see a lot of YA books set in college. This girl gets into a reality TV show at her college, and it's just about her adventures and what happens there. I didn't like this one as much as I expected to, mainly because it was a big book, and while most of it was told in kind of this chat format, I just didn't really appreciate the humor as much as I would have liked. Jane was very sarcastic, and I found it hard to connect with her in that way. But it was a fun read. I gave it 3 stars. You know, nothing phenomenal, but it was good. And I love seeing YA set in college, and I'm definitely hoping to read more of that soon. Next up is Small Spaces by Sarah Epstein, a new debut Love Oz YA author. This is her first novel. It's incredible. It doesn't come out until April this year, but oh my god, I could not resist reading it earlier, and I had this copy, so why not? It's a thriller, and if you're a fan of Fleur Ferris's books or Rebecca James, then you have to pick this one up as soon as it comes into stores. It's phenomenal. Oh my god, it had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I never knew what was gonna happen, and everything that I thought would happen, the tables were turned, everything changed, and I was shooketh. Whew, that book. Incredible. The next book I have here is Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I read Robin's other book, which was Emmy and Oliver, which I really enjoyed, but then Far From the Tree blew my mind. It was sensational. This is a book about adoption and siblings, and it was just so beautiful. It was so heart-wrenching, and I loved every single one of these characters. Oh my gosh. If you're a fan of contemporary and you love books about family, then you have to pick this one up. I also read Everless in January, and I really enjoyed that book. I'm not as big into fantasy as I am for, say, contemporary, but I still really enjoyed this novel. It reminded me a lot of that movie In Time, so if you like that kind of thing about time and society, then you should definitely give this one a shot. One of the other books I read this month was The Harper Effect by Taryn Bashford. This is a Love Oz YA novel. It's about sport and tennis, and while I'm not super into sports in YA, like, you know, it was an interesting read. I wasn't too much of a fan of the love triangle in this book, and some of the protagonist's decisions I didn't 100% agree with, but maybe if you enjoy sports YA, you should give this one a shot. Another book I read in Jan is The Dangerous Art of Blending In. This was a really tough book to read. It's about a protagonist who is gay and has an abusive family, and it was really confronting and difficult to read. And his family is also religious, and they were all like, oh, we have to get the demon out of you. So that was like so tough to read about. Apparently the author experienced similar things in his life, and this is kind of like a fictionalization of what happened to him. So yeah, that's like heart-wrenching to know that. But I didn't enjoy this book personally, just because I found it so hard to connect to the protagonist because of the way it was written and because of how confronting it was. This book definitely isn't for everyone, but I feel like there are definitely going to be a lot of people out there who really love this book. It's a raw and powerful read. It's just up to whether, you know, you can stomach reading about that, because it is really tough to read. So be warned if you're going to pick this one up. Next up, I have At the Edge of the Universe by Sean David Hutchison, who is officially one of my all-time favorite authors. This is the second book I've read by him. I also adored We Are the Ants. And what I love about his books are that they include kind of like a sci-fi, like speculative fiction element. And this one was about a boy whose boyfriend completely disappears from the world. Like, nobody remembers him except for the protagonist, even his family. And the universe is also shrinking. So it's up to this protagonist, who is the only person who knows what is going on, to kind of work out what's happening and why this is happening, and to keep searching for his boyfriend. So it's really beautiful. It's so well written. It's such a powerful read. It does cover issues such as self-harm and abuse, so be warned, trigger warnings for those things, but it's such a great book, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking up more of the author's books soon. I also read Brooding YA Hero, which was such a fun read. I'm sure most of you will have known of this book from Twitter. Brooding YA Hero actually has his own Twitter account, which is iconic. It's so good. So this book is written in a really unique format. It's not like a novel. It's more about Broody's life and how he becomes the love interest, or like the YA hero in so many books. And it's kind of taking the piss on the stereotype of this brooding character who has like deep smoldering eyes and is everyone's heartthrob. So it's just a fun read. Next, I read Before I Let Go, which was one of my most anticipated reads of this year. This book is a thriller set in a small town, and it's about a girl who died, and the protagonist has to work out what really happened to her. I did really enjoy this book initially, but the more I read of it, the more kind of uncomfortable I felt reading it. The way the town treats the memories of the girl who died by suicide was really confronting. It didn't really have very good mental illness representation, because the girl who did die had bipolar disorder, and the way this was talked about, not by the protagonist or like the writer, but by the town in general, was really like problematic. And I understand that that's what the author wanted to write about, and how like problematic a town can be when someone dies by suicide, blah blah blah. I just feel personally I didn't enjoy that aspect of it, and I felt like this wasn't the book that I was expecting to launch into and to read. So it was different from what I expected, and that's probably why I didn't enjoy it as much as I did. Next up, I read Neverland by Margot McGovern, which is another Love Us YA novel, which is coming out very soon. I'd heard amazing things about this one, so I was so excited to read it, and I had the chance to meet Margot at the PTA showcase a couple weeks ago now, and she was just lovely. She signed my book, bless her soul. So this is a book that's really reminiscent of Peter Pan, and kind of captures those same elements, and like the themes of growing up and, you know, not wanting to escape your childhood were really prevalent in this book. This was another really confronting read. It talked a lot about self-harm and depression and like attempted suicide, and so that was tough to read about. This wasn't an easy read, but it was really powerful, really beautifully written, and it's definitely one to look out for when it comes into stores. And then I read Miles Away From You. This book is quite problematic. So it's about this cis white boy who's pansexual and demisexual, and he goes on this adventure to Iceland to find himself. And this was spurred on by his transgender girlfriend, who's a woman of color, attempting suicide and being left on life support. What's being said about this book is that it's really harmful for trans readers, especially because what they're seeing is that the only trans character in this book was abused by her parents, and she attempted suicide, and it's just like really not very good rep, and it can be quite harmful for those readers. Of course, it doesn't mean a lot coming from me, a cis white girl, so yeah, just be mindful if you go into this book. Another book I read was Scythe, which is kind of a more utopian version of our world, where there are these people called Scythes, and they pick who is going to die, and they kill these people to kind of keep the population under control. So that was a really interesting thing to read about. And then these two teenagers get taken on as apprentices, and you see what goes on and how the Scythe society actually works. And yeah, it was really interesting. I need the next book in my life. That ending was amazing. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and it was kind of reminiscent of They Both Die at the End. So if you like those books with kind of similar themes, then you should definitely pick up Scythe. Next I read You're Welcome Universe, which was a gorgeous book. I had it sitting on my shelf since last year. It's about a deaf girl who is really into graffiti, and it's about the friendship she makes and her art that she creates, and it's a beautiful book. This was a 4-star read for me. It was nothing phenomenal, but it was still really enjoyable and definitely worth reading. Another book I read was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, which is one of everyone's most anticipated reads of this year. It was definitely far creepier than what I imagined. I was very creeped out by this book. I had no clue what was going to happen. I was really surprised by some of the things that did happen. I loved how magical and mesmerizing it was, and if you're kind of into those more fairy tale-esque books and you like The Cruel Prince and whatnot, then The Hazelwood is definitely a book for you. Another one I read was Goodbye Perfect by Sarah Barnard, which I was really looking forward to, seeing as I loved her previous 2 books that I read. Unfortunately, I didn't like this one as much as her others. I found that there was nothing really that special about this story. I get that it wanted to explore kind of like dangerous relationships and what can happen in like a relationship between a student and a teacher and that kind of grooming aspect, but at the same time, I didn't find it overly memorable. Then I also read The Cruel Prince, of course, which was the YA Rooms Book of the Month for January. This was another 3-star read for me. I'm not massively into fantasy, but I could definitely appreciate this book, and it was enjoyable, nothing phenomenal for me. What I did like about it was that it was really easy to get into, and it also explored some tougher topics like abuse and bullying. And there was also a lot about family and the importance of, you know, siblings and stuff, but nothing overly memorable. Again, maybe I'm too fussy with these books. Maybe that's what happens when you read 20 books in a month. The second to last book I read was Meet Cute, which is an anthology about all these different people who meet for the first time and kind of have like cute interactions. It was adorable. I liked some stories better than others, but they were all really enjoyable. A couple of them I kind of flicked through pretty fast, but probably the most memorable ones for me was Emery Lords, Nina LaCour, Dianelle Clayton. Honestly, like, oh my god, Huntley Fitzpatrick. Yes, so many amazing authors contributed to this book, and if you're really into meet cutes and you love like cute romance, then I definitely recommend picking this one up. Another book I read for January was White Knight, which I don't have in my possession, but it was really good. I love Ellie Marnie's books. This is a new Love YA novel released by her. Like all her other books, it's really atmospheric. I loved getting to know the characters, and I love that like twist at the end. I didn't see that coming. So for the first like 50 pages or so from me, because I didn't know where this book was heading, because I don't read blurbs, because I'm a terrible person. I felt like it was a little slow to get off its feet, but I did really enjoy reading it, and I definitely recommend picking it up when it comes into stores, especially if you love the Every series. And last but not least, I read Let's Talk About Love. Yes! If I had to recommend you only one book from January, I would recommend this one. It's about a biromantic asexual woman of color, and her sexuality is how I identify myself. So it was really amazing to see myself in a novel. This book is about Alice, whose girlfriend recently broke up with her because she didn't want to have sex, and it's about her exploring the asexual spectrum and where she lies on it, as well as her crush on this cute guy who works at the library. Also, it's set in college, which was so cute to read, and it's just like the epitome of my life. Just like, oh, libraries, awkward party interactions, being biromantic asexual, having a crush. It's just beautiful. So yes, please pick this one up. It's so good. So those are all the books I read in January. I honestly can't believe I got through so many of them, but I'm really proud of my reading progress, and I've definitely made a really good start towards my Goodreads reading goal, thank goodness. If you don't already know, our February book of the month for the YA Room is Love, Hate and Other Filters, which I read in December, which was so good. I can't wait to read it again, so I'm fresh to discuss it with all of you. And as usual, we'll be meeting on the last Sunday of February, I think it's the 25th, at Dimmicks, Melbourne, in the upstairs section of the cafe from 2:30 until 4 p.m. Make sure you pick up a copy of Love, Hate and Other Filters as soon as you get a chance to, so we can talk about it. It's an Own Voices book. It's phenomenal. It's just great. Please do it. Please read it. And also don't forget to pick up some of the books I've mentioned today. Most of them were really great, and I would love to know if you've already read some of them or if you're planning to. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye everyone.